The Korean Mafia boss couldn't stop laughing at the man in the worn-out suit. Sure, he was just some broke nobody. His smile vanished when the woman beside him calmly announced that this nobody was now the legal owner of the Syndicate's bank. In one sentence, the power flipped. The man they mocked now controlled every dollar they had. That night in Seoul, every man in that underground bank thought they had Keanu all figured out before he even opened his mouth. The suit did not help him. It was the kind of tired gray jacket that had seen too many winters, the fabric shiny at the elbows, a faint tear near the hem where someone had tried and failed to stitch it back together. The knot of his tie sat a little crooked, like he had done it on the subway without a mirror, and then forgotten to fix it. In a room full of polished leather shoes and hand-stitched tuxedos, he looked like he had taken a wrong turn from a bus station. The Korean Mafia boss, Chairman Ju, noticed him the moment he walked in. Ju sat at the head of a massive mahogany table, a cigar resting between his fingers, sleeves spotless, smile sharp as a knife. Around him, his lieutenants stood like shadows, heavy shoulders, cold eyes, hands never far from their jackets. The air smelled of old wood, expensive cologne, and the metallic chill that leaked out from the vault door behind them. On the table, neat bricks of cash were stacked like small green cities, banded and perfect under the yellow chandelier light. Keanu paused at the threshold, just long enough to register all of it. The men, the money, the guns he was not supposed to see. And then he did something that confused them all. He bowed. It wasn't a deep bow, not something rehearsed or theatrical. Just a simple, almost shy nod of respect, the way he might greet the owner of a neighborhood market. His hand brushed down his old suit as if to quiet the wrinkles, and then he straightened and walked toward the table. "You've got to be kidding me," one of the lieutenants muttered in Korean. Ju didn't bother to lower his voice. "This is our guest," he asked, turning to the woman standing near the far end of the table. His tone made guest sound like problem. Sandra stood there in a white dress that cut clean lines through the room, every detail controlled, hair, makeup, even the angle of her shoulders. Where Keanu looked like he had stumbled in by accident, she looked like she had planned this moment for months. But there was something in her eyes, a tight glint that didn't match the calm on her face. She met Ju's gaze without flinching. "Yes," she said softly, "he's the one I told you about." Ju's attention swung back to Keanu, and now the full weight of the room followed. The guards at the walls straightened. A low hum of conversation died. Somewhere behind the vault door, machinery clicked and sighed, as if the entire building held its breath. Keanu felt it all, the judgment on his clothes, the disbelief, the danger curling in the corners like smoke. His heart beat too fast, but his voice, when he finally spoke, was steady. "Thank you for inviting me, Chairman Ju," he said. His Korean was careful, respectful, the kind you learn when you don't want to offend anyone. "I know your time is valuable." For half a second, Ju only stared at him. Then the Mafia boss tilted his head back and laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was loud, open, rolling up from his stomach and filling the room. A couple of his men joined in, not because they found anything funny, but because that's what you do when the most dangerous man at the table laughs. One of them slapped the table. Another wiped at his eyes as if this really were the best joke he'd heard all week. "Valuable," Ju repeated in English, pointing his cigar at Keanu. "Yes, very valuable. That is why I ask myself, why am I wasting it on you?" Keanu's cheeks warmed, but he did not look away. This part, he had told himself, would be the hardest, letting them underestimate him, letting their words land and choosing not to react. Humiliation was a small price compared to what he had promised himself he would do with this chance. His eyes flicked just once toward Sandra. To anyone else, she looked like she was carved from calm. But Keanu had learned, in late-night calls and whispered meetings across oceans, to read the tiny shifts in her face. Her fingers tensed around a slim leather folder she held against her side. The muscle in her jaw ticked. Beneath the controlled exterior, she was just as aware as he was that one wrong word here could mean bodies on the floor. Ju leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Look at you," he said. "Wrinkled suit, no watch, no ring, you come into my bank." He spread his hands, indicating the vault, the money, the men, like a clerk who got lost on his way to the front desk. He squinted. Tell me, did nobody explain to you what kind of place this is? Keanu swallowed. I know exactly what kind of place this is. The room cooled a degree. It was not bravado, that was the strange thing. His words didn't have the sharp edge of arrogance. They came out quiet, almost gentle, like he was simply stating a fact, to them, to himself. Behind his calm, images flashed through his mind. A small office on the 10th floor, an old man with kind eyes and a cough that would not go away, a metal box slid across a desk with shaking hands. Ju's smile thinned. Do you? He said. Then you know we don't do charity here, we don't indulge fantasies. His gaze dropped slowly down the length of Keanu's suit and back up again. Every inch of that look said the same thing. You do not belong in my world. Sandra stepped in then, just a fraction, her heels scraping softly against the polished floor. Chairman, she began, her voice level, if we could sit, I can explain. Later, Ju cut her off without looking at her. First, I want to hear him try. He tapped ash into a crystal tray and nodded at Keanu. You asked to speak with me, so speak. What do you want from my bank? Keanu had rehearsed this line 100 times, but now that the moment was here, the words carried a different weight. He thought of why he was standing in this room at all. The hospital corridors that smelled like bleach and fear, the unpaid bills, the quiet funerals, all those small, invisible lives crushed under the numbers hidden in this building. He straightened his shoulders, feeling the pull of the old fabric across his back. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said. I'm here because this bank already belongs to me. Silence. For a heartbeat for two, the words simply hung there, too unexpected to register. Then a low chuckle escaped one of the lieutenants. Another snorted. The chuckles turned into laughter, then rolled around the table like a wave. Ju did not laugh this time, he just stared. You, he said slowly, in that careful tone people use when they think they might have misheard. You think this bank belongs to you. Keanu met his gaze. I don't think it, he replied. I have the documents. Every eye in the room swung to the only person holding any papers, Sandra. The folder in her hand suddenly seemed very heavy. Ju's voice dropped to a soft, dangerous murmur. Sandra, he said, drawing out her name. What documents is he talking about? Her fingers tightened around the leather. For weeks she had prepared for this. Checked every signature, memorized every clause, rehearsed how she would say these next sentences without letting her fear show. But now, with a dozen armed men between her and the exit and Keanu standing alone in that old suit, her throat felt dry. Chairman, she said, each word measured, I think it would be best if we all sat down. There are changes you need to be aware of. Ju's eyes narrowed. Changes. He flicked ash again, slower this time. No, I am very comfortable standing. He leaned back in his chair and extended his free hand toward her. Bring me the folder. Behind her polished expression, Sandra's mind ran through every exit strategy they had planned. None of them involved handing those papers over before she had a chance to speak. She did not move. Keanu watched the tension stretch between them like a wire. He knew what those documents said. He knew what would happen if Ju read them before hearing the full story, before understanding why an old man had signed his empire away to a nobody in a cheap suit. But he also knew something else. Sandra's life, and his, now depended on the next 3 seconds. Ju's smile vanished. I won't ask again. The guards at the wall shifted, the soft rustle of fabric over concealed weapons filling the silence. Sandra took a breath, feeling her own heartbeat drum against the folder. She looked at Keanu just for an instant, and in that glance passed every unspoken question. Are you ready? Do we do this now? Do we burn everything we have prepared for? Keanu gave the smallest nod. Sandra stepped forward, the click of her heels echoing in the quiet room, and instead of placing the folder in Ju's waiting hand, she rested it gently on the table in front of her. When she spoke, her voice carried in a way that made the men at the walls straighten without realizing why. Chairman Ju, she said, I'm afraid there's been a change in ownership. She laid one hand flat on the folder, steady at last. And as of last week, she continued, eyes locked on his, the legal owner of this Syndicate's bank is the man you've been laughing at. The room froze around them, but before Ju could react, before anyone could say a word, one of the red lights above the vault door suddenly blinked to life with a soft, urgent beep. The red light over the vault door blinked once, then again, faster, until the whole room pulsed with its warning glow. The soft, high beep threaded through the heavy silence like a tiny, insistent alarm clock in a room full of loaded guns. One of Ju's lieutenants, a stiff-shouldered man in a tailored navy suit, glanced up at the light, then at his boss. "Sir, that indicator only flashes when there is a—" "Quiet," Ju snapped without looking away from Sandra. The beeping did not care about rank. It kept going, steady and patient, as if it had all the time in the world. A slim man with glasses stepped out from near the vault controls. He moved carefully, like someone who knew one wrong word could be the last thing he ever said. "Chairman," he murmured, eyes on the monitor, "the system has registered an ownership change. It's reading a new majority stakeholder." Ju's jaw clenched. "That's impossible," he said. "I did not sign anything." Sandra felt every gaze swing back to her. The folder in front of her seemed almost alive now, humming with the energy in the room. She slid it a little closer, the leather making a faint scrape on the polished wood. "It's not a mistake," she said. "The registry updated 3 days ago. The notification was scheduled to show only if you refused to meet with us, or if you tried to move the bank's assets without authorization." Ju rose slowly from his chair. The laughter that had filled the room a minute earlier was gone, leaving only a brittle electric tension. His eyes, dark and suddenly flat, locked on Sandra. "You scheduled this," he said. "You plan to embarrass me in my own house." Sandra held his stare. Her throat felt dry, but her voice did not tremble. "I planned to make sure you listened." He extended his hand again, palm up, no longer pretending to be patient. "Give me the folder." She did not defy him this time. There was no more point in trying to control the order of things. The fuse had already been lit. She opened the folder, took out a neat stack of papers, and walked them over to him. He snatched them from her hand. For a moment, the only sound was the rustle of paper as he flipped through. Transfer of shares. Emergency appointment of a new chairman. Registration stamps from the Financial Services Commission, marked with dates and seals that even his men recognized. At the bottom of the main document, in clear black ink, sat 2 signatures. One belonged to a man Ju hadn't seen in more than a year. The other belonged to the stranger in the shabby gray suit. Ju stared at the first signature, Han Seung-ho. Old Han, the founder of the bank. The quiet man who had once walked these halls with a thermos of tea and a soft word for every clerk, even after Ju's money had twisted the bank into an arm of the Syndicate. The last time Ju had visited him in the hospital, the old man's hands had shaken so badly he couldn't hold his chopsticks. "You expect me to believe this," Ju said, voice low. "Han could barely write his own name." "He was clear when he signed," Sandra answered. "I was there, a notary was there, 2 witnesses. He knew exactly what he was doing." Behind her calm words, a memory burned in Keanu's mind. A hospital room washed in pale light. An old man's fingers wrapped around a pen like it was the heaviest thing in the world. A whisper in careful English, "Promise me you won't use this for revenge. Promise me you'll use it to give people back what we took." He had promised. Ju's lip curled. He flipped to the next page, where a thick paragraph in legal language had been highlighted. His eyes skimmed it, then went back and read it again, slower. "If the new owner of the bank suffers harm, disappearance, or death under suspicious circumstances, full digital copies of the bank's internal ledgers, offshore account records, and transaction histories will be automatically transmitted to the Financial Prosecutor's Office and 3 independent media outlets." His grip tightened, crumpling the edges of the paper. "This is blackmail," he hissed. "It's a safeguard," Sandra replied, "against accidents." The tech with the glasses cleared his throat, his voice barely above a whisper. "Chairman, the alert isn't only visual. It's triggered a secondary protocol. Our external transfers just froze. I can't move any funds out. The system says only the registered chairman can override." Ju's head snapped toward him, Try again." "I did," the man stammered. "3 times. If I force it, I'll trip the secondary failsafe. We don't know what that does." Keanu stepped forward a fraction, feeling every eye on him like weight. "It sends the ledgers," he said quietly, "to the prosecutors and to the families we listed." "Families," one of the lieutenants repeated. "The people this bank ruined," Keanu said. "The ones whose houses were taken with illegal interest rates, whose businesses were choked by laundering schemes. The ones who buried their parents because they couldn't afford both medicine and repayments." His voice stayed soft, but the words landed heavy. "We didn't come here to start a war, Chairman Jew," he continued. "We came because there's a way out that doesn't involve blood on this floor. Keep some of what's clean. Step away. Let the rest go back to the people it was taken from. You're not the only one who's afraid of losing everything." A murmur rippled around the table. Some of the men looked at the stacks of money with a new, uneasy awareness, as if the bills themselves were watching them. Jew stared at Keanu like he was something poisonous. "You think you are better than us," he said. "You stand in that thrift store suit and talk to me about mercy." Keanu shook his head. "No, I'm not better. I've made mistakes too. I just decided I didn't want other people paying for them anymore." The simplicity of it brushed up against something raw in the room. For a heartbeat, the air shifted, the way it does right before rain. Then Jew crushed it. He moved so fast half the men flinched. One moment his hand held the papers, the next it was inside his jacket, drawing a gun he had never needed to show in this room before. The metal gleamed under the chandelier as he swung it up, not at Keanu, but at Sandra. The barrel stopped inches from her forehead. "Undo it," he said coldly. "Call whoever you have to call, turn my bank back into my bank, or you die first and then he dies slow." Sandra's breath caught, but she did not step back. "I can't undo it," she said. "Even if I wanted to, the ownership is registered. The fail-safes are already active. If we try to tamper with them, everything goes public." Jew's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind her, the vault light flashed faster, the alarm now a steady, urgent tone. On the monitor, new lines of red text appeared that only the tech could see clearly, but the color alone was enough to drain what was left of the laughter from every face in the room. Keanu took a step toward them, hands raised, heart hammering so hard it hurt. "Leave her out of this," he said. "This was my decision, take me instead." Jew did not even look at him. "I will take both," he said softly. The gun stayed pressed to Sandra's brow. The beeping rose into a continuous whine, and somewhere deep in the building, a heavy mechanism began to turn as the bank itself prepared to choose a side. The hard circle of the gun barrel left a faint dent in Sandra's skin, a cold shadow that made Keanu's stomach twist. Every instinct in him screamed to move faster, to close the distance, to do something other than stand there with his hands in the air. He forced himself to breathe. "Listen to me," he said, speaking not just to Jew but to the room. "If you pull that trigger, you don't just kill her, you kill yourself and everyone who works for you." One of the lieutenants scoffed. "He's bluffing, boss. 1 bullet and it's over. We burn the papers, wipe the cameras." "We can't," the tech interrupted, voice cracking. He pointed at the monitor. "There's an automated relay primed. It's set to go if the new chairman's biometric tag flatlines, or if there's a fire in this room, or if," he swallowed, "or if we lose contact with the vault systems for more than 60 seconds. "Biometric tag," Jew repeated. Keanu lifted his wrist. Under the frayed edge of his jacket sleeve, a thin black band hugged his skin. It looked cheap, like something sold in street markets, but the blinking green light on its surface told a different story. "A one-way tracker," Keanu said. "Linked to the bank's server, that was Hand's condition. He didn't trust me without giving me a leash." Behind his calm words was a memory of fluorescent hospital lights and the old man's raspy chuckle. "You will hate this," Han had said, strapping the band around his wrist with trembling fingers. "But sometimes the only way to keep honest men alive is to make it dangerous for them to disappear." Jew's eyes narrowed. The gun did not move. "You plan to die in my bank?" he asked. No, Keanu's answer came fast. I plan to walk out of here with you still alive. A bitter laugh burst from one of the men near the wall. He talks like a pastor. Sandra's pulse thudded loudly in her ears, but her voice stayed level. Chairman, we both know you don't shoot people in your own vault if you can avoid it. It leaves stains you can't bleach out. Let's sit down and I'll explain the structure. There's still room to negotiate. Negotiate? Ju spat. You have taken my bank, frozen my money, and set traps on my own systems. The only thing left to negotiate is how long it takes you to die. He shifted his aim a fraction, dragging the barrel from Sandra's forehead to Keanu's chest without warning. The motion was so sudden Keanu flinched despite himself. That is close enough to you? Ju asked quietly. The muzzle pressed into the thin fabric above Keanu's heart. Up close, he could smell Ju's cologne, smoke and cedar, and something sharp underneath, like cold metal. His knees felt weak, but his voice held. If you kill me, he said, the system dumps everything we have on you to the prosecutors. Names, accounts, the judges you paid, the politicians who pretended not to see you. I made sure of it. How? One of the lieutenants demanded. You're one man. Keanu almost smiled, but it came out tired instead of smug. One man who used to audit banks for a living. One man who knows how terrified they are of being caught holding dirty money. They helped, quietly, the same way they helped you for years. A murmur ran through the room. The shape of the world was tilting, and they could feel it. Outside the bubble of fear and anger, the steady whine of the alarm cut through everything. It reminded Keanu of the machines in intensive care units that he had learned to listen to while sitting next to hospital beds. Each beep a promise that a weak heart was still trying. His mind flashed back to a small apartment weeks earlier. Papers were spread across a wobbly kitchen table. Sandra, in jeans and an oversized sweatshirt, rubbed her eyes and laughed without humor. Do you have any idea, she had said, how much trouble we'll be in if this fails? They had worked under the yellow light for hours, tracing blood-slicked money through shell companies and offshore havens, their coffee growing cold as the list of victims grew longer. Pensioners, taxi drivers, a single mother running a tiny bakery that had been swallowed by interest payments she never truly agreed to. At some point, Keanu had pushed the papers away and buried his face in his hands. I don't know if I can carry this, he'd whispered. Sandra had rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. You're not carrying it alone, she'd said. You didn't put those people in debt. You're the one trying to take them out. He remembered the way that had felt, not like comfort exactly, but like someone quietly sliding their hand under a heavy box you were sure you'd drop. Back in the vault hall, that same hand now trembled only slightly with a gun pressed near it. Chairman, Sandra said, her voice softer now, almost tired, you once told the board that this bank was your spine. That without it you were nothing. That's not true. Without you, this bank is just concrete and numbers. You are still a man. You can choose something else. Something flickered in Ju's expression, anger mixed with something he'd buried for years. It lasted only a breath before pride smothered it. Choice is for people who can afford it, he snapped. He nodded at his men. Take him to the vault. I want him to see what he thinks he owns before I bury him in it. Two lieutenants moved in, grabbing Keanu by the arms. The gun shifted away as Ju stepped back, but not far. Sandra lunged to follow. If he goes, I go, she said. Ju's eyes flashed. You go where I tell you. Still, he did not stop her when she fell into step behind them. Maybe he wanted an audience. Maybe some part of him believed there was still a deal to be made, even if he could not admit it yet. They marched toward the looming steel door. As they approached, the sound of the alarm deepened into a low, mechanical growl. The vault systems, sensing the triggers they did not yet understand, were shifting into a different mode. Protection or destruction, it was hard to tell which. The tech called after them, panic edging his voice. Chairman, there's a timer on the lock now. I don't know who set it. If you go inside and it hits 0 while the doors open, it might seal you in. Then you'll make sure it doesn't hit 0, Ju said without turning around. Keanu stumbled once as the men shoved him forward. His shoulder brushed the cold metal of the vault frame. For a second, a strange, hollow sound reached his ears, like wind echoing through a cavern, or... He stopped. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "Hear what?" one of the guards snapped. From inside the vault, under the rumble of machinery, there was a faint sound. A dull, rhythmic thudding, like someone or something hitting metal from the other side. Thud, thud, thud. Sandra's eyes widened. Is someone in there? Ju froze on the threshold. The noise came again, a little louder this time, followed by a muffled voice none of them could quite make out. The man who thought he owned every inch of this place suddenly looked like a stranger in his own house, staring into a darkness that held a secret he had not put there himself, as the countdown on the vault door ticked toward a number none of them could see. The vault door rolled open with a deep metallic groan that vibrated in their chests. Cold air breathed out from the darkness inside, tinged with the faint smell of steel, paper, and something older. Fear, maybe, soaked into concrete over years of whispered deals. Keanu's shoes scraped over the thick threshold as the guards shoved him in. Sandra slipped past one of them, ignoring the hand that tried and failed to stop her. Ju entered last, his presence like a shadow dragging the danger in with him. Rows of safety deposit boxes lined the walls, small square doors stretching into the dimness. In the center, under hanging industrial lights, stood stacks of gold bars, sealed crates, and metal cases. Hard drives and encrypted servers hummed quietly in glass cabinets, holding the digital skeleton of the Syndicate's empire. The thudding sound came again, clearer now. It wasn't supernatural, it was desperate, fists against metal. "Over there," Sandra said, pointing toward a cluster of larger storage lockers at the far side. A guard flicked on a secondary light. The beam fell across a heavy side door most people would have mistaken for part of the wall. A small, round window had been welded over years ago, but someone had scraped at the edges from the inside until a narrow crack reappeared. "Hey," a muffled voice called through the crack. "Is someone out there? Hello?" Ju's face hardened. "Open it," he ordered. The guard hesitated just long enough to earn a glare, then spun the wheel. The smaller door groaned, seals hissing as it broke loose. When it swung outward, 3 figures stumbled into the vault light. They were not rival gangsters or spies. They were ordinary, a thin man in a delivery uniform, a middle-aged woman clutching a worn purse, a teenager in a school jacket with dirt on his cheek. Their eyes blinked against the brightness. Fear and confusion swam there. "Finally," the courier gasped. "We've been banging for half an hour. They told us it was just a routine security check, but then the door." His words died as he saw Ju. The woman's hand flew to her mouth. The teenager took a step back, shoulders pressing against cold metal. "These are customers," Sandra said tightly. "Safe deposit clients." Ju's expression did not soften. "They shouldn't be here," he said, "not during a meeting." Keanu looked from the terrified faces to the thick steel door they'd just come through. The idea of them being sealed in there when the system shifted its mode made his stomach knot. "Let them go," he said. "They don't know anything." The courier nodded furiously. "We don't, I swear. I just came to drop off some documents for my boss. Please, I have kids." Ju lifted his hand and everyone went silent. He turned to the guard. "Take them to the staff exit. No stops. If they speak to anyone, I will know." The 3 exchanged quick, panicked glances, but the alternative was staying in that metal closet and fear of that one. They followed the guard out, the courier whispering a shaky thank you as he passed. Keanu watched them go, something easing in his chest that he hadn't realized was clenched. Ju noticed. "Do not mistake that for kindness," the boss said. "Dead customers attract questions, questions attract police." He gestured to the gold bars. "This is what we protect here, not feelings." Sandra's gaze swept over the wealth around them, the stacks of metal, the silent servers, the doors hiding secrets behind numbers and names. "You don't protect it," she said quietly. "You're trapped by it." Ju stepped closer to the gold, almost unconsciously. His fingers brushed the edge of one brick, as if touching a religious icon. "When I was a boy," he said, voice almost conversational, "I slept on a floor that flooded when it rained. My mother dried the blankets with a hairdryer she borrowed from a neighbor. The first time I saw a bank lobby, I thought it was a palace. Marble floors, warm air. People spoke softly, like the walls were listening. He looked at Keanu. You know who the first person was to speak to me there? Han, Keanu said softly. Ju's mouth twitched. Yes, old Han, back when his hair was still mostly black. He offered me a job as a cleaner. I watched him for years. He believed money was a tool. Then he got sick. The world changed. The tool needed someone willing to use it harder. Sandra listened, hearing not just the words but the ache behind them. This man had not been born a monster. He had grown into one step by step, choice by rationalized choice. You didn't have to turn it into this, she said. You weren't there when the first government inspector came with his hand already open, Ju shot back. When the first politician said, if you help us, we'll help you. When the first desperate man begged me to hide his dirty money, and I realized I could charge him 3 times what it was worth. He gestured at the vault. Every brick you see here is a promise kept. People trusted me to be cruel on their behalf. I cannot break that trust for your conscience. Keanu stepped closer to one of the server cabinets. Inside, blinking lights danced across circuit boards like tiny constellations. Those are not promises, he said. They're chains. Every name in there is someone afraid you will expose them. You call that power, but it's just more fear. You are not free, Chairman. You're surrounded. For a second, the words hung in the air between them. The old pain in Ju's eyes flared, and then once again pride smothered it. I am surrounded, he agreed. By money, by men who owe me their lives, by fear that works for me. His voice cooled. But you are surrounded by steel, and I decide when the door opens. He reached into his jacket, not for the gun this time, but for a small black remote. His thumb hovered over a recessed button. Sandra's chest tightened. What does that do? Overrides the timer. The tech's distant voice crackled through the intercom near the ceiling. Sir, if you engage manual control while the system is in alert mode, it could. The rest of his sentence cut off as Ju pressed the button. The overhead lights flickered. A deep, grinding sound began in the walls, like a giant animal waking from sleep. The vault door behind them shuddered, then began to crawl inward, closing inch by heavy inch. Outside, faint but growing louder, came the wail of sirens. Police, Sandra whispered. They're early. Keanu swallowed. They're on time, he said. I called them before we got on the plane. Ju's head snapped toward him. For the first time, something like genuine shock crossed his features. You brought them to my door, he said. They were always coming, Keanu replied. With or without me, I just made sure they had the right map. The sirens swelled, echoing through the thick concrete. On the intercom, voices overlapped, guards shouting, the tech babbling about system conflicts, Min-Yi trying to sound calm and failing. We've got units outside the main entrance, sir. They're demanding access to the records. They say they have a warrant. The vault door is still closing, the tech cried. If it seals while it's on manual, the failsafe. No one needed him to finish. Ju turned back to Keanu, fury and calculation warring in his eyes. You think this is noble, he said. You think bringing strangers with guns into this place makes you a hero. I think hiding behind other people's fear stopped working the second that alarm went off, Keanu answered. The gun reappeared in Ju's hand, so quickly it was as if it had never left. He pointed it straight at Keanu's chest again. Then we go back to simple rules, he said. You die, I find a way around your toys, and the world keeps turning. Sandra moved without thinking. She stepped between them, feeling the cold circle of the barrel settle against her sternum instead. No, she said. If you shoot anyone in here, the system reads the shock. You heard your own tech. You won't have time to find a way around anything. Her eyes shone, but her voice stayed clear. You can still walk out of here with a lawyer instead of a body bag. That's more mercy than this bank has given anyone in years. The narrowing gap of the vault door cast a thick shadow across them, cutting the room in half. The sirens were louder now, joined by the amplified bark of officers demanding entry. Inside, the red emergency lights flickered to life, painting the gold and steel in a bloody hue. Ju's hand trembled just once, then steadied. "Move," he whispered to Sandra. "I will not ask again." She did not move. The grinding of the door grew deeper, heavier, as if the whole building was deciding in slow motion whether to become their coffin. The air inside the vault thickened until every breath felt like it had to fight its way in. The closing door chewed away at the outside world, each inch stealing a little more light, a little more sound, until the sirens were just a muffled vibration in the floor. Sandra could feel the gun's muzzle through the thin fabric of her dress, a cold, unblinking eye against her ribs. Her spine ached with the effort of standing perfectly still, but she did not take a step back. "Do you remember the first time Hen brought you in here?" she asked suddenly. The question cut sideways across the moment. Ju blinked. "What are you talking about?" he snapped.